go. 3, 2, 1. What's up, guys? This is Vu. Welcome to the second episode of Strength Uncensored. Today, we're going to get to meet and get to know pretty intimately about our resident scholar, coach, lifter, Mark Perez.
Resident scholar.
Yeah, there you go.
I like that.
Yeah, so Mark and I bond over a lot of stuff, mainly our interest in the same books, same philosophy, and obviously lifting. And we're both coaches, although, he's more into powerlifting and other things, and I'm more into weightlifting, CrossFit, but we have, a lot of crossovers, and he has a lot of interesting to say. So, Mark, tell us about who you are.
Tell us about who I am. Wow, what a question. Let's
just start with, how about this? Let's make it easier. Let's start with, how did you get into coaching?
How did I get into coaching? So, how did I get into coaching? I was a athlete, firstly, as a powerlifter. I injured my back in early 2016. I spent the whole year kind of trying to seek out physical therapists to help me, and no one really knew what to do. And then from there, I actually I didn't meet Sayun, but Sayun was like, hey, I can show you some stuff. You guys know Sayun. And he showed me some stuff, and then from there, he blew my mind. And I really got into trying to help people avoid the holes that I fell into.
So when you say Sayun, which, by the way, is one of the smartest. He's like a sage.
Oh,
if
he is a sage.
Yeah.
He is Yoda.
Almost up there, minus the statues.
Yeah, for real.
So, but anyway, so how did Sayun really blow your mind? What was the things that he showed you?
Dude, he completely changed the paradigm in terms of what form is. He basically distinguished the difference between skeletal position and form, right? When people think form, they think chest up, sit back, drive through your heels, stuff like that. But what Sayun introduced me to was, I guess, the position of the skeleton. So position of joints relative to one another, and that's what position or form becomes. So that way you can actually use muscles that you're supposed to be using instead of just, keeping your chest up, sitting back, using your hips, quote unquote. So
right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. I want to get into a little bit into that. So everyone has a little bit of a different anatomical structures, right? Obviously, we have the same skeleton, but the limb length and the hip joints and all that's different. Now, when Sayun worked with you, was it generally speaking, or did he show you this is how your body is supposed to move compared to someone who's like me?
So he spoke in generalizations in terms of what each joint should be doing relative to itself, and then it was up to me to discover where my body would be relative to itself, because
interesting.
Me personally, my femurs aren't that long. I have a longer torso. I have a longer rib cage.
Right.
So my position is going to be different, but the principles of position in terms of for example, tucking the pelvis and then bringing the ribs down and in to create that pressure, that's all the same.
Right. That's kind of the meta guideline.
Exactly, the meta guidelines.
Of all things. But because, I think you would agree with this, is that my approach to coaching is very individual.
Yeah, of course.
Based on your purpose and on top of that. And I think we kind of work together a little bit, how you show me certain, breathing pattern just to help me brace my core in the squat, for instance. So let's talk a little bit about that bracing, because I think that's kind of lacking in a lot of beginner lifters.
Yeah, so a lot of people confuse how to brace correctly just because of the cues that go around, big air or big belly, show me how fat you are, right? Those have become really popular. And that's a really easy way, in my opinion, to For one, not breathe correctly, and for two, to almost like drive your body into extension. Essentially, what that means is like your whole body is like falling forward. So it's like you have that big Superman chest, you have a big arch in your low back.
Right.
Right. So ideally, what we want is we want to do the opposite. We want to bring everything back. We want to get the abs tight, the upper hamstrings tight, and then from there, once you seal that position, right? Because bracing is two things. It's muscle contraction, and then it's breath. Breath is what keeps the position.
Right.
Right. So the easiest way I've found to cue people to brace correctly is firstly teach them how to exhale completely.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then from there, inhaling through your nose. Everyone likes to breathe in through their mouth.
Interesting.
That's a really easy way to breathe into your chest, let the chest rise, and not draw the air to where it is that you want to pull it to, right? Because bracing and breathing, they're almost synonymous, like I said, just without the muscle contraction, right? But you need to have that skill of being able to manipulate air in your body, right? You don't want to let the air manipulate you.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how I describe bracing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, so, I mean, you work a lot. I mean, not a lot. Is it solely powerlifting?
No, but that is the majority of
the majority.
clientele.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and what other things that you coach besides powerlifting?
So I coach some fighters. I coach some general population people.
Fighters?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
like what
BJJ guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right on. So what do you do for them?
It's whatever they need.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Do you condition them?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, interesting.
Lots of rotation through the rib cage, lots of single arm stuff, lots of mobility.
Yeah.
Like for them, I like to load. This was actually like something I picked up from the Stoke Brogy. It's do a load and then superset that with like a mobility movement.
Interesting.
So then what you're doing is you're mobilizing, then you're loading, right?
Right.
So
what's the purpose of that?
So literature shows that that's the easiest way to create long-term mobility, right? Passive stretching is cool, but if you can
right.
mobilize and then load those newfound positions, that's the easiest way to ingrain it with the central nervous system.
Now, obviously, this is more specific toward the fighters.
Of course, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So I just want to make sure, like, not everybody listening to this is like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, but I mean, if you're a power lifter, though, you're a human first, right?
Right,
You're not a power lifter.
Sure.
So, like, if you're a power lifter and you're only squatting to depth 365 days out of the year, I would recommend getting some deep hip flexion work, some deep, internal rotation work. Just to save your hips, save your low back.
For sure. You know, that's why I think accessory work is paramount to lifters. You know, especially on my powerlifter, not powerlifters. I'm sorry, my weightlifters and the CrossFitters, right? So they always have these issues with the rotator cuffs, right? You know how like the pinching feeling in the shoulders. I'm like, because your
they don't know how to move their scapula.
That, and on top of that, they're not getting enough like rotational work outside of just the snatch and the keeping pull-ups and all that stuff, and all of a sudden they're all inflamed, you know. But anyways, so I love how you talked about the single arm work or the unilateral work.
So important.
Let's expand on that a little bit.
Okay.
So, as somebody or as a lifter, or let's just say even people who do CrossFit, for an instance. Yeah. So, majority, I would say, I'm not saying all. Yeah. I'm saying majority of the work is done bilaterally.
Yeah, of course.
So what's the
for
benefit?
The most part, bilateral sport. Yeah.
So what's the benefit of?
So unilateral work is very important because for one, it decreases the likelihood of developing muscular imbalances. It works your core a little bit more, and then it's good to have variation. If you're so specific, for one, you can get bored. You can burn out, stuff like that. So it adds variability. But I think, in my opinion, the most important part is the eliminating the possibility of muscular imbalances.
That one's big, because muscular imbalances, or any imbalances for that matter, leads to overcompensating.
Exactly,
and
compensation
injuries,
patterns. Yep.
All that stuff. Right. And then let's talk about the core, because I do think there's like still a pretty big misunderstanding how to train, quote unquote, the core correctly, right?
How to train the core.
Yeah, it's so weird that a lot of my female clients would say they would say, why don't we do more abs, or why don't we do more sit-ups, or
Yeah.
so on and so forth,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
like they'll go ahead and do the GHD sit-ups. You seen those?
Yeah.
Those things are pretty wild.
They're hard.
But they're hard, but
Yeah. It's more of a hip flexor workout.
thank
than
you.
anything,
See,
yeah.
it was a hip flexor. So how would you say you need more core strength? Like, let's just say that as an umbrella statement.
Yeah.
So how would you go about someone should properly train their core?
Well, I always go back to looking at what the ribs are doing, right? Because the ribs and the pelvis are your core,
Right.
right? So the pelvis is the bottom part of your core, the ribs are kind of the top part of your core, and they get connected by your actual core tissue.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as training your core, I like to do anti-extension work. So that's getting into like a hollow body position, right?
Right.
Essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's closing that space, creating
Right,
tension.
right.
I also like to do anti-lateral bending, so something like a side plank, a suitcase carry, whatever.
So more unilateral, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And then also I like to do anti-rotation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so anything as far as like being in a push-up position and doing shoulder taps, or
Right.
like a pal-off press,
Right.
whatever. You can get as creative as you want,
Right,
You see people do a lot of stuff, but you don't have to get crazy. Like,
No.
it's pretty basic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basic work, so why go
And
too
then
crazy?
exhaling is huge, because
Okay.
that's what creates that position of the rib and the pelvis, which is, like I said, paramount for core stability.
Mm-hmm.
Because if your ribs are flared and your pelvis is untucked,
Uh-huh.
as in, like, imagine your waistline is a bucket of water. If there is water spilling out from the front,
Mm-hmm.
and your ribs are flared, for one, you're not using your core correctly. You're not tensioning it, right?
Right.
As some people would say. So then you're kind of almost like strengthening other things. Like, for example, if you're in an anterior pelvic tilt and you're trying to strengthen your core like that, you're going to be more or less strengthening your hip flexors and your
Right.
low back versus your actual core,
Makes sense.
right? So you need to make sure that what you're trying to train is stable, as in, like, there's no movement in the two joints
Right.
that are like above and below the muscle that you're trying to train.
And that, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
so
I
it's,
do.
It's proximal stability creates distal mobility.
Huh.
So it's like, let's just take it to the hamstring, for example.
Okay.
Right? If your pelvis is tilted, then that's gonna pull the top of your hamstring upward, right? So then trying to, like, flex your knee, you're not gonna be actually using your hamstring. You're going to be using, let's say, for example, your low back, right? Whereas if you actually anchor your pelvis and then try and
Down,
flex,
right,
exactly,
right,
and then
right.
flex your knee, you're gonna feel your hamstring,
Oh.
right?
Okay.
So it's that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, these are the things that not many people like think about, when they
Yeah.
move around very much. You squat, just sit down, stand up. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Sit down, stand up, chest out, hips
So,
back. Yeah,
exactly.
no, I know what you
Knees
mean.
out.
Yeah.
Something like
knees
that.
out. It's my least favorite.
Yeah, it's so popular these days too.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
how
you
everyone
know?
gets taught.
Yeah, and I mean, I went to the level 1, the CrossFit certification. The one was like, I don't know, 2011. Yeah, 2011. So 8 years ago, and that was probably the number 1 cues.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, no wonder these people got
Like, I understand.
IT band pain. And
Yeah,
whatnot.
seriously, because they're just using the outside of their hips.
Right.
That
And then-
I understand the reason for it. They're
Sure.
trying to safeguard the knees and stuff like that.
And
right?
the rolling in of the
Exactly,
knees. But
exactly. But it's like, I even was squatting like that for a while until,
Sure.
like, I quote unquote woke up, or saw the
the red pill.
the red pill, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought that now, obviously knowing what I know now,
Yeah.
you would agree that it was more so the knees caving in was more so the collapsing of the arch of the feet.
Yeah, that could be one thing. It could also be, like I said, an inability to keep the ribs and pelvis stacked. I know I sound like a broken record because that's all I talk about, but it's your core,
Yeah,
right? Like,
for sure.
metaphysically, it's your
Yeah.
core.
Right. Yes.
So it's very important, right? If your pelvis falls forward, then it's very easy for your femurs to rotate inward, right? And then you have to
Yes.
drive them out again.
Right.
So it can be your feet, but it can also be your hips, you know? So it's like everything affects everything. There
absolutely.
isn't one
Yeah.
thing.
It's a
you
chain
know?
reaction.
Exactly.
Right on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's zoom it out a little bit, and do you coach much in terms of conditioning, meaning like endurance or aerobic capacity training, anything like that?
So it depends on the person. Like
Okay.
if I have a general power lifter, I'll just tell them to go walk outside,
Right
see
on.
the sun, walk barefoot in some grass
Oh, yeah,
if they can.
yeah. I think we're gonna touch up on that
Yeah,
next. That's
yeah.
interesting.
It all depends. Like I don't train any CrossFitters, so I don't
Okay.
have to like, train them
Right.
to essentially be strong for time.
Right,
Because
of
that's
course.
what CrossFit
Right,
is.
right,
you know,
right.
so.
Yeah, there are a lot of things like that. So, if you were to, let's say, if you were to coach a powerlifter, right? So, what other things you would recommend them to do outside of powerlifting to perhaps to make them better at powerlifting per se?
To make them better at powerlifting, I would make them a better human first of all, because like I said, that's the base,
of course,
right?
that is the base.
So, being a powerlifter is just one aspect. Like training is one aspect
Sure.
of being a powerlifter,
Right.
right? So we would have to look at nutrition. We would have to look at,
Right.
how much they sleep, how much they hydrate.
Mm-hmm.
I would even say stuff like, meditation practices, stillness practices.
Yeah,
right?
see, that's the
Because,
difference between you and me.
You need the stillness, man. You can't
Sure.
be go all
Right,
the time.
right, of course.
Because you're gonna fry.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the Perez sympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we got to switch off between the two.
Powerlifting is
Right.
inherently sympathetic, so you need to get that parasympathetic shift. Right?
Yes.
And that's exactly where I come back to, bringing the ribs down, bringing the pelvis underneath you. That's all flexion tone. That's parasympathetic stuff,
Mhm.
right? Whereas extension, external rotation, all that is sympathetic.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And that's very, very
Right.
good for powerlifting.
Mhm.
But if you can't get out of that, then that's when you start to see
I
problems.
see.
you know?
I see what you mean.
So
I see
I
what you mean.
definitely like meditative practices, especially if you're a powerlifter. Like you don't have to like sit like upright in the lotus
Mhm.
position or whatever.
Mhm.
It's just
Mhm.
like lay down on the floor, feel your body, feel what your joints do relative to one another.
Mhm.
When you move your hand, see what happens at your shoulder.
Nice,
So it's
okay.
like feel your body out, be in your body,
Right.
right? That's what I recommend to all the people that I work with,
Uh-huh.
and that gives them a better, kinesthetic sense, a better awareness of their body, how it moves, and then just breathing, right? Like I said, breathing is huge.
Yeah.
So
The self-awareness aspect, even just like knowing what your joint do, and that's what makes, I believe, the gymnasts are such great athletes.
oh yeah,
So they have full awareness of what their
Yeah.
body do.
dude, they're freaks.
I know. And that comes to like all kinds of awareness, in general. So
And they're very aesthetic, dude. They're like some statues, some Greek
yeah,
god
yeah,
figures,
yeah.
Goals.
I know, they are. So let's zoom out the topic a little bit and let's talk a little bit about your philosophy in coaching.
My philosophy in coaching.
How do you approach coaching?
So, the way I approach coaching obviously is completely individual to the person.
Okay.
Like it's all dependent on their goals.
Right.
And then if I need to light a fire under them,
Mhm.
I will. If I just need to kind of like keep them on the right path, I will.
I see.
But for the most part, I like to guide. I don't like to spoon feed. Like
Right,
I
of
like to
course,
guide
yeah.
them. I like to let them make mistakes because then they'll learn.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they're veering too far off course, we'll kind of taper them back in.
Right.
So
Nah, well, that makes sense.
it's like a guide, a sage, I guess. I don't know. No, a guide.
Yeah. And how many clients are you coaching right now?
I have 11 people. Right
11
now.
people you're coaching.
Yeah, it's not bad.
No. I was gonna ask you how much time do you invest in each one of them?
So it depends on how much time they want of me.
Really? Okay.
But for the most part, I do set boundaries. Like I'm not on my phone until about 9 a.m. and then I'm off my phone by like 8:30.
Oh wow.
So anywhere in between those hours is free game. As
Okay.
long as like I'm not
Yeah.
doing something, I'll reply. If I'm driving, I'm not gonna reply. But yeah.
Right. And do you have trouble with your athletes being either too unmotivated or overly motivated, like the extremes of the motivation
So,
scales?
As far as motivation, not really. Like I know a lot of people that I
Mm-hmm.
work with are they're average everyday people, as in like they have a job, they're in relationships
Mm-hmm. Right,
and stuff
right.
like that. So it's more about them finding that balancing act. I've never really had anyone burn out, thankfully.
Oh, that's good.
But they do come to me if they're feeling like overwhelmed. Like we'll adjust some stuff and we'll go from there. So
Right.
it's nothing too crazy so far.
So how about someone who is kind of like lower on the motivational end?
Lower on the motivational end, I just ask them, I'm like, do you really want your goals?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh shit, like I didn't think you'd ask me that.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's my
Right.
job to, you know?
Yeah, fair
So,
enough, fair enough. And you know, I mean, I've been reading books about psychology
Yeah,
and
yeah.
philosophy, you know, and I'm reading this book on motivation, right? And
Yeah.
then, you know, how people get motivated and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So one of the things that stuck out to me the most, and I think they stress a lot on that, is the choice. So people are most motivated when they consciously make the choice.
Yeah.
So, so I guess, how is it that someone made the initial choice and then lose it, you know, in that journey?
So life is constantly changing, right? So the way I
Right,
see
right.
it, it's goals can change and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you have to be upfront with yourself. You can't be
Sure.
lying to yourself.
Yeah, right. The
You have
authenticity
to have,
of it. Yeah.
Exactly. You have
Yeah.
to have that self-awareness to be like, whoa,
Mhm.
maybe this isn't what I want.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, then I'm more than happy to have that conversation,
Right.
you know. But I always try
Right.
and make sure that everyone is on top of themselves,
Yeah.
right? Because if they're not, I can't, I'm not inside them. I don't know what they're thinking. you know?
Right. Of course.
So it's one of those things where I keep people accountable with themselves, you know.
No, that's good. That's
So-
good. Yeah, I do have some issues. Let's just say people are saying what they want, but when they
Yeah.
actually do,
Yeah.
because it's like one of those things, you know, like it always looks so great on Instagram. It always looks so great on social media or whatever, right?
Yeah, like Simon Sinek, I think would be a good one. Then ask them why they
Start
want
with
it.
the why. Yeah,
you know,
start with the
exactly.
why, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Be like, do you want this to look good on social media, or do you want this to feel better?
Yeah.
Do you want this to get that serotonin loop? You know?
Yeah,
like
the
work
serotonin, yeah,
hard. So
exactly.
it's one of those things.
Right. You know, yeah, that is a good questions to really have. So let me ask, like, why do you coach then?
Why do I coach?
Yeah.
I like to help people.
That's simply it?
Yeah, that's it. dude.
There's nothing else beyond that?
I like being able to not be anywhere and make money, I guess.
Okay.
Is a good way, and that if I'm being completely honest. you
Yeah,
know?
sure, yeah. You be
So,
authentic.
but I love helping people.
Right.
You know, especially just because I guess I identify myself as a wounded healer, you know, like
Sure.
I hurt myself.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm trying to help people avoid those pitfalls, avoid those landmines out in the field, you know.
Yeah, of course, and
So-
unfortunately there are a lot of them out
Yeah.
there.
And I just like watching people progress because it's cool. It's almost like it's like an egoic thing for me because I'm like, oh, like I've helped them grow and stuff, you know.
Yeah,
but at
yeah.
the same time, like it feels
I mean, you
good.
invest time and effort
Exactly.
into them, you're going to
Exactly.
want to see some kind of return.
Exactly.
You know, and you know, it goes to this. I have one of my clients, and I love her, right? And she was, she works hard, but her problem is she works too hard.
Mm.
So, and she's naturally a very strong-willed person.
Too much yang, not enough yin.
Could be, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to. Perhaps it was like her upbringing and all that stuff.
She's
but
a go-getter.
oh, absolutely!
Yeah.
Like she's a survivor, man.
There's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes it she's always driving, and when I said, you know, slow down
Yeah.
and take a
Yeah.
day off, and
Yeah.
it's like, you dude, watch out, you meet with some resistance, and you know how the mind works, right?
Yeah, of
We talk
course.
about that, and you can always justify why you need to do certain things.
Of course.
You know, yeah.
It's easy to get caught in those loops. Like, oh, if I stop, this is gonna happen.
Exactly.
So then I think what you would need to is get down to the reason why she feels like she can't stop.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
That would be a good conversation to have.
Yeah, that would be an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah. But like you said, choice, right?
Exactly. The choice.
Viktor Frankl said that. That's like our superpower, choice.
Mhm.
Right. From Man's Search for Meaning.
That's right. He wrote that book.
Yeah.
It's on my reading list actually.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. What book are you working on? I mean, we have a lot of
Dude,
same books we're reading.
Yeah. So right now I'm reading Becoming Supernatural by Dr.
Yeah,
Joe Dispenza.
You finished with that?
I'm close.
Okay.
I have like 60 pages left. I don't know.
Yeah, let's talk
It's been
about it.
it's
Yeah,
been
go ahead.
cool. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. Throw it out, man.
He is, I guess, as what you could describe as a mystic, which is so interesting because he's a doctor, he's a surgeon, he's into like neurobiology and all this
Mhm.
stuff. He's basically linking the gap between like belief and science in a really cool way. So he has a bunch of studies that show like how your body's energy changes when you're in like meditations and stuff like that. He has all these graphs, and it's super cool. I've been reading it just to kind of like get into a deeper meditation practice, just to see what I can, you know, come out with. And so far, I get lost in my meditations. Like it feels like I'm in there forever, but it's been like 10 minutes. You know, like I'll come out like with all this profound stuff. I'm like, wow, like I was in there for 3 hours and stuff.
Right.
And it's been 10 minutes.
That's cool.
But then at the same time, that could be one of those things where it's like maybe my mind just runs really fast.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, it's cool, man. Like it's very refreshing. He talks a lot about like Eastern philosophy, you know, like the chakra system and all that stuff, which I find very valuable, because the way I see it, it's like a reference system to align your body. You know what I mean? So like I study a lot of PRI, which is just postural restoration, and they talk about aligning 3 bones in your body, which is the sphenoid, which is the bone behind your eyes, your sternum, which is right over your heart, and then your sacrum.
Yes.
Right. So
the tailbone, basically.
Exactly. Right. When you align those 3 in one straight line, it's easier to rotate around that line, right? Your midline, right? So then that's when the exhale work comes in to align that, and then be able to move your scapulas around your ribs instead of, you know, just moving the head of your arm in the socket of your shoulder. Right. So we're moving what we need to be moving. Right. And like for me, I guess like everything I read, I try and bring it back to movement, because that's just what I like.
Right.
You know? So
yeah, you know, like it seems like you are the movement master.
No, I don't know about master.
Okay, fair enough. So
constantly studying.
So you're like the student of movement patterns.
Dude, I love it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Because, you know, I obviously am not well versed at all in that term. Right, I know something.
Yeah. You're jacked, bro. Don't sell yourself short.
No, I mean I could, because I kind of understand nutrition, understand energy, and understand biology, and understand the energy system, and that kind of those little hormonal thingy. And we're talking about mitochondria and a little bit, if we have time. But you know, that's. But when it comes to movement, like I wouldn't even know what to align with what, you know.
So as far as movement goes, like I have that base because that's what I studied in school.
Right.
Like I kind of I don't want to say like I fell into it, but it was what I steered towards the most in my kinesiological career.
Right.
And because I have an engineering background, I actually did 3 years of mechanical engineering, and then I actually like switched out because I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So it made biomechanics a lot easier.
I see.
Just because I have, you know, I understand the levers and math and stuff like that. So it's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So what's the future project going on for you?
Future project.
Anything you're interested in accomplishing in this?
Future project. I think I'm working on my own brand.
Okay.
As in to have like a proper name for my coaching service.
Okay.
Working on articles, working on just a bunch of content to put out to the community.
Right.
I'm like a little worried just because I don't know how it's going to be received, just because I'm sinking so many different disciplines into, I guess, becoming a better human, which then makes you become better at whatever it is that you're doing.
Right.
You know, but a lot of this stuff can be like construed as like woo-woo stuff, you know.
Oh, you know.
The energy, the chakras and all that stuff. So it's like
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you my opinion on that, right? It's one of those things where not necessarily ambivalent. It's more so that I don't understand enough.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't understand enough about it to make any rational or any, you know, great judgment about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if anything, I applaud you for that, because, you know, to get into that zone where not many people would, in a scientific community, would frown upon. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, exactly. You know, you're doing all this like Eastern medicine, holistic medicine. Like, what are you doing? You know, there's no empirical data. There's none of this stuff.
Exactly. And that's the pushback I find with a lot of people in the community.
Really?
But because they're like, oh, where's the data, bro? I'm like, dude, like.
Sometimes, you know, it's, you know, anecdotal.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're like, anecdotal data isn't real. Like, dude, have you seen the community that's like the evidence-based crowd in the community?
You know what? I haven't, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a huge one out there.
There's a big one, and they're like, "Oh, why warm up? Just warm up under the barbell." I'm like, "What? Like,
are you serious?
Yeah,
Is that what they say?
They'll say stuff like that.
Oh my god,
it's much, I think, but I also see their side to where it's like if you have no data, it's like
I understand that.
You know, it's always being somewhere in the middle, right?
Sure, but okay, so this is where we can get a little bit more philosophical here.
Exactly.
So. You and I read Jordan Peterson,
yeah,
and, you know, and we read some Carl Jung stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we talk about, that's like data is we consider science, right? Let's say hard science, and then we're talking about anecdotal, meaning let's say something more like a religious experience or something mystical.
Just a subjective experience.
A subjective experience.
Exactly.
So to us, and like we had this quick conversation on Instagram, is that you have evidence. Right, but what do you make sense of evidence?
Exactly.
You know, you gotta have your subjective view on what to do with that evidence.
Exactly.
Right.
I agree. 100%.
And to be fair, science would develop along the way. Just because there isn't an evidence now, it doesn't mean that there won't be evidence in the future.
Exactly. Right. So something that I've heard, it was what was it? It was like a lack of evidence does not mean a lack of there being, something like that. I forget the exact term.
It's kind of like this debate about if God exists. And just because you can't prove God exists, it doesn't mean he or she does not exist. It's just simple as that, you know?
Exactly.
So
I think there's a lot more to our experience than we can really truly understand.
No, of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, you know, if vibrations and energy healing and chakra aligning is your thing, you know what?
I don't know about, like, vibrations
Oh,
and stuff,
okay.
but,
Fair enough.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's more just like a reference system.
Right.
But, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, you know, you're exploring, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're exploring.
Yeah. Because, I mean, when you think about it, like, the universe is just energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what matter is.
Exactly. Once you get down to the atomical level, right, there's nothing but space, essentially. It's so strange that we're made up of atoms, but atoms are nothing but empty space. Like, how does that hit you?
No. I don't even know what to think about that.
Yeah,
you know?
That it just blows my mind.
Yeah, it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like that.
Yeah.
It's just, you just said atoms is just empty space, and they're all just energy.
Yeah.
Stored.
Yeah.
Wow, shit.
Yeah, dude. The quantum physics is something else.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's something else.
Yeah, it is something else. I don't even know when to start with that, you know?
It's too much.
Right.
It's too much.
Right.
But I have a feeling that quantum physics is going to be the gate into, I guess, those mystical experiences, you know, the stuff that you can't explain.
Fair
That's
enough.
how I see it.
You know, like, this is a little bit off topic. Well, whatever, we don't have a topic anyway. So, do you foresee that you being that guy, the frontier, the one that, and I mean this in the movement and the just the health and fitness industry in general, right?
Yeah.
Will you be that like the explorer of that frontier, applying quantum mechanic or quantum physics into your training, perhaps?
Probably not, just because I believe there are already people doing that. You know, there are people that's essentially what holistic health is. You know, like it's seeing how everything is connected, literally everything. Right. Every field, from sociology to quantum mechanics to history to, you know, astronomy to movement to biochemistry, whatever. Everything is connected.
So by connected, you mean they are literally bonding with each other, or you see same pattern over and over again?
So then what's the difference between the two?
So I think the pattern would be, okay, let's just say the atom, it looks like a solar system, right? But I don't know. I can make the direct, you know, connection.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is everything is connected in a sense that, I mean, just take like biology, for example, right? The study of life, right?
Sure.
So then you look at the human body, look at the inside of the human body, right? That's just physiology, right? That's biochemistry in action. That's what physiology is.
Sure.
Right? And then if you look at like psychology, a mental state is just a reflection of what's going on physiologically in the body, right? So a mental state is just physiology in action, right? And then if you break that down even more, biochemistry in action, like I said, is physiology. So then what is biochemistry? It's a combination of chemistry and biology.
Sure.
Right? So then what is chemistry? Chemistry is just, right, like quantum physics, right? Atoms, right? Because all atoms form to make elements, which is chemistry.
Chemistry, right.
So then what is quantum physics? It's just life, right? It's everything expands on itself and closes in on itself in this like crazy cool way.
No, yeah, that is cool.
You know? And then if you look at like just social relationships, right? That's just mental states coinciding with one another, right? Because that's what people are.
Hold on. Say that one more time.
So social interactions are just mental states interacting with each other.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because that's that's behavior. Right?
Sure.
It's a combination of like what your mental state is at right now, and that's all dictated upon other stuff, you know?
Right.
Your physiology is like 1 second before your reading behave.
Yeah.
It's a good book, right?
Yeah,
But that's essentially what it is.
It was tough at first, don't get me wrong. It was really tough for me to get through.
It's a good one, dude.
Yeah.
It's a good one. But everything's connected, you know? Philosophy is just
abstraction of everything.
It's an abstraction of...
And it's the way for me, like we talking, it's how we make sense of things.
Exactly. It's like understanding how we interact with one another. And then that's also like sociology, right? The study of society, which again just goes back to mental states interacting with one another.
Right.
And then if you get like deep into psychology, you know, it's whether you're talking about the ego or
the id, the superego, the Freudian type.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so fascinating.
And then you got the archetypal stuff with the Jungian type, right?
Yep, exactly. And then if you study history, you understand that society just repeats itself, right? So it's literally everything connects. So like I kind of understand why we are studying what we study in school, like in the public school system, but at the same time, like it's not useful for our society.
No.
Right? But I understand the meaning of it in like a life context.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So it's like, why would knowing calculus matter?
Oh, I see what you mean.
In society.
Right.
But calculus is the language of the universe.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? It's how you measure space.
Sure.
That's it.
Sure.
Volume of space.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting. It's very interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
That blew my mind, man.
That's funny. I blow my mind all the time.
No, I'm sure, man. I
make a sex joke about that.
You know, I mean, I can't even imagine just like spend like 5 minutes inside your mind. That would be pretty cool.
I don't know, dude. It's did you ever watch The Wild Thornberrys?
No.
No? Oh man. Well, there's this character. He's like this little like Tarzan kid that like gets like adopted by the family, and he like doesn't speak English or whatever. He's just like gibberish,
right,
like hyperactive gibberish.
Yeah. That's
my mind. But it's cool. It's
as long as he sort himself out.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Just a bunch of like neurons talking to each other.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And I do think sometimes you should think about like publishing these thoughts of yours.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you write journals?
I do. Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
You should publish that every now and again, just to see what's going on in your head.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love to see what's going on in your head.
Okay.
Maybe it's just being weird.
No, you're good. I get it. it's how we interact.
Yeah, right. Well, man, how do we get in touch with you if someone wanted to be your client?
You can follow me on Instagram at Perez.
So just your okay.
Yeah, that's my name, but you switch the first letter of my first name, the first letter of my last name.
Okay.
Around.
Perez.
Yeah.
It is at PARKMEREZ.
Yep.
Perez. So if you're interested in talking to Mark, who is extremely intelligent and interesting, I promise you get your mind blown at least once.
And you get a free hug.
Oh, okay, a free hug.
Yep.
Yeah, if you're into that, hugging
if you're
stuff.
not, I'll still hug you.
Okay, good Lord.
Yeah.
So, if you love this podcast, and if you stay with us this long, please hit the subscribe button. We'll come back to you with more interesting conversation with more interesting people. All right, see you guys.
Peace out.
All right, thanks, brother.
Dude, that was fun.
That was awesome.
Yeah.